Welcome back, everybody, to IGN Live from San Diego Comic-Con, brought to you by Lucy and the Evil Within. We're here with Gale Anne Hurd, who has probably produced all of your favorite movies. Terminator, Terminator 2, Aliens, The Abyss, Tremors, Armageddon, and now she's producing The Walking Dead on TV.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming by the show.
Happy to be here.
Speaking of Terminator, are we enjoying an anniversary this year?
Yes, 30th anniversary.
It is. It makes me feel very old. But yes, the Terminator came onto the scene in 1984.
Wow.
It's amazing because just last month I went to a double feature of, I'm a big Terminator fan, Terminator 1, Terminator 2, with James Cameron doing a Q&A, and he was talking about how the work that you guys did at Roger Corman's really enabled you to tackle this movie at such a low budget. I don't think people understand what you were working with. Talk a little bit about your process as a producer and a writer on this film.
Sure. When Jim and I talked about making the film, we realized that it would be taken away from us if the budget was too high.
Yeah.
So we engineered it so that even though it was a futuristic idea, even though it was science fiction, the technology came from the future. So the rest of the setting and the locations and the costumes were all contemporary Los Angeles. And that, we made the film for $5.6 million.
It's amazing. I mean, did you have any idea at the time that it was going to launch this franchise and these iconic characters? I mean, it's a silly question. How could you know, right?
No. We just hoped that it would do well enough that we'd be able to make another movie. That was, that was our ambition. And when it exceeded that, no one was more surprised than we were.
Have you paid attention? There's been so many iterations. There's obviously been Sarah Connor Chronicles, the show, comic books, the multiple films. Have you paid attention to the continuing iterations of these characters? Do you feel a sense of ownership at all?
No, because the rights ended up being sold out from under us. And since Jim and I don't have any connection to something that we essentially created, it's a little hard to be invested in the direction other people are taking the characters and the world.
Would you ever want to take ownership again? I know how complicated that would be and expensive. But would you ever want to take ownership again if that were possible?
It kind of depends how the current iterations proceed.
Yeah.
I would certainly love to do a reboot. Jim and I had talked about it before, but once again, the rights were sold. And, we weren't invited to the party.
Do you have any hopes for Genesis, or it's just over there?
I know nothing about it.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about it. Do you have one sort of iconic moment or memory from that experience? I mean, first of all, Sarah Connor. You talk a little bit about what that character, because I know what she meant to me.
The interesting thing is that because the movie was called The Terminator, a lot of people assumed that the main character was the Terminator. And the truth is, the main character in the film is Sarah Connor.
Yeah.
It's her story. And we've always been interested in the world of ordinary people thrust into extraordinary circumstances who don't believe that they can cope or handle the challenges. She not only succeeds, without her, the world of humanity would have been lost to the machines.
I think we have a question from the community.
A question from one of our viewers down here. This is from, they're pulling it up.
Pulling it up right
now. Crystal asks, Terminator is basically my childhood. How does it feel to look back at it 30 years later?
It is the most wonderful thing to know that it continues to be relevant 30 years later, and that people look to it as inspiring future generations of filmmakers and films.
100%. I'm sure it was inspiring to Roth and I, even getting into what we do, and talking about video games and movies to our audience every day. For sure.
Let's just bring it into the present a little bit with The Walking Dead. Walking Dead has a big presence here at the con, as you know. We ended last season, it was interesting because there were some real structural changes, between the 2-arc Governor episode and then Solo focusing in on the characters. Do you foresee this season being a little bit more back to being an ensemble, or how do you foresee the structure being in the coming season?
Well, we're almost halfway through in terms of scripts for the season. And, I think that there's an opportunity to do both storytelling, to have what is very much an ensemble piece, but also to be able to fall follow individual characters, because we got such insight not only into the governor, but Beth, who is a character that people didn't know much about, and those opportunities are really gold, I think, not only for the actors on the show and the writers, but the audience, to be able to connect with who they are.
Obviously, they've been left. We left on a big cliffhanger there,
Which is also something we'd never done before. We'd never had a cliffhanger ending.
I mean, I assume we're going to be finding out what's hitting right back on that moment, which is interesting. That's another change. There's usually a time jump.
Exactly. So we like to think that we have a few tricks up our sleeve that are very much character driven, but we're not just playing out the same scenarios over and over again.
Last season also, it sort of dealt a little bit with, I thought, people coming to understand, the characters coming to understand that they could do monstrous things without becoming one of the monsters in the world that they were living in. And that was reconciling, look, in this world, whether it's Carol or Rick, we're gonna have to do horrible things.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean we're one of them.
Right.
What sort of is the trajectory of this season? What would it thematically?
You know, I think we'll be challenging our characters again, because it is a world in which the stakes are life and death, but they're life and death every moment of every day. You're never safe. And you'll see them pushed to the limit. And characters that haven't necessarily had to face those ethical and moral decisions will have an opportunity to see what they do when they are.
Well, we owe you a great debt for bringing us such great entertainment over the years. So thanks for coming by the show, and we look forward to everything that's coming next.
Well, thanks for inviting me, and I hope to see you again next year.
Of course.